everyone. Welcome to the Esau Macaulay podcast. I'm your host, Esau Macaulay. And today we have our second ever co-worker joining us on the episode. We have Skye, who's normally on something called what is your thing that you're on a lot?
Skye Pod.
The Skye Pod, but you have like a bigger podcast.
Yeah, there's that other one.
Holy Media? What's it called? Holy Post Podcast?
Yeah, it's the Holy Post.
Okay, Holy Post. You're like a co-host on there, right?
I am.
It's a big idea. And look, we also have Mike. You produce all of these episodes?
Every single one. I do.
Oh, so you're not just my producer. You're everybody's producer.
I am everyone's producer.
Okay, then we're excited because normally I have to sit beside them and like wait for them to tell me to talk. But now he has to sit there and wait until I am ready to speak. But Skye, we're so happy to have you here.
I'm delighted to be here. I'm just offended I wasn't the first co-worker to be here.
Well, Mike complains that he is a co-worker.
Right.
And
I'm still a little offended once again. Like, no. You're the third.
You're the
Caitlin
third.
was the second. I was the first.
I got it.
That's true.
Well, we actually have this episode is going to debut on the eve of Halloween. And here on the Esau Macaulay podcast, we like to be vulnerable. We like to like tell our deepest, darkest secrets. And so what we want you to be able to do in this moment, okay, maybe not deepest, darkest secrets.
I missed that.
What I got myself into?
Moderately revealing secrets. I want to open up by asking you on the eve of Halloween, was there ever a scary movie or a Halloween character that legitimately terrified you as a kid, or maybe still terrifies you now as an adult?
Yeah, pretty much all of them.
Okay.
So I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and back then we were free range children.
Okay.
Parents, they had no idea what we were watching or what we were doing. They didn't know where we were most of the time. And I had an older brother who loved these scary movies.
Yeah.
And so I used to have to watch them because he was like responsible for me. And like I remember he snuck me into a movie theater to see Hellraiser.
Oh my goodness!
Like, yeah, and then there was a moment where the projector burned through the film, and so they had to turn all the lights on. And he and his buddies were all in the row together, and they knew I was too young to be there, so they threw me on the ground and covered me in coats so that the people working at the movie theater. So I saw all these terrible movies, but like. Probably
Hellraiser. Wow.
It explains so much.
I know, but like all the Halloween movies, all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. But I think it was probably Freddy Krueger.
Freddy Krueger.
Now, the thing with Freddy Krueger, when you go back and watch those movies, he's actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
Which didn't work on me as a kid.
Okay.
But the thought that this guy shows up in your dreams and murders you, so you can't go to sleep. And you may not know this.
Yes.
But the guy behind that movie, Wes Craven, he grew up here in Wheaton.
I know. The last year on Halloween, someone terrified me by telling me.
The Elm Street he's talking about, is right not far from where I live.
Yeah, I found this out last year in real time
on this podcast.
Yeah. I don't go over there.
So once somebody told me that, I was just like,
I feel like Nightmare on Elm Street was designed to terrorize kids. Like, why would you create an entire series where the premise was don't go to sleep? What about you? What scared you?
Okay, so not a Halloween movie, but there's this movie that came out mid-2000s, Strangers.
I don't want to betray your trust here on the podcast, but there was a reason why you don't have any stories when you were afraid as a kid. Why is that?
Well, I'm just so much younger than you all.
No. Why didn't you? What did you?
I mean, my parents wouldn't let me watch these.
It was a different era.
So you watching zero scary movies growing up?
Now that I can recall, the scariest movie I can remember watching as a kid was Jurassic Park.
Oh my gosh!
This is something that scares
That's
you.
not a scary movie.
So
in
this
your
was
grown
like high
man
school,
era.
college era. Watch Strangers. It's a movie about a couple who rents a cabin in the middle of the woods for a romantic weekend, and 3 strangers show up in the middle of the night. They're all wearing creepy masks. And all night, they just mess with the couple. They break in, they do spooky, crazy things before they eventually kill them at the end of the movie. And the reason why...
Wait, who kills who?
The strangers kill the couple. Like, the good guys don't win.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So, like, it's so realistic. That's why it's scary. Like, Freddy Krueger, that's not happening.
But then it's killed
when you're 8 years old, it's scary.
Right. Well,
wait, hold on. They just killed the couple?
They spend the whole movie torturing them, messing with them, and then at the end of the movie, and this is the creepiest part. At the end, the main character asks the strangers, "Why are you doing this?" And they go, "Because you were home."
Oh my goodness!
And it's just this idea of like, there's nothing you can do. They did nothing wrong. They were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Here's the thing though. The first time I watched this movie, I was a student at Wheaton. I was watching it at a friend's dorm across campus. My dorm was on the other side of campus. I had to walk home at like 2 a.m. Terrifying. A police officer pulls up next to me and he goes, "Hey, have you seen anyone suspicious around here?" And I'm like, "No." He goes, "Okay, thanks." And he leaves. And I'm kind of like, I mean,
am I going to die out here?
Yeah, is there someone suspicious around here? Could you bring me to my dorm?
See, the funny thing is, I used to walk around at night in Wheaton on Saturday nights to kind of memorize my sermons that I had to preach on Sunday morning. And I was stopped by police on multiple occasions, except I was the suspicious looking guy.
Well, you would walk around in the middle of the night muttering to yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's legitimate. Could I tell you mine? I don't want y'all to mock me. Okay, this is going to be silly. But has anyone ever seen the movie and the TV show, The Incredible Hulk? Like the one from the 70s?
Yeah. With Lee Farino.
So I used to have this same nightmare over and over again because the whole point is he's a good guy who wants to do good. You just don't make him mad. And so I used to have this dream that we were playing basketball with Lou Ferrigno and everybody would say...
Oh, it's Lou, right?
Yeah. Everybody would be like, don't foul him. That was like the thing. He's a great guy, great basketball player, has a nice three-point shot. Don't foul him. But every time he would drive through the hole and somebody would just push him down, and then he'd be like, "Oh no, I'm about to turn into the hole." And so we'd have to run away from Lou Ferrigno. And like the whole point, it was the same nightmare. We're playing basketball, things are going great. Somebody fouls the Incredible Hulk, and now we all got to die.
Wow.
So I was terrified of playing basketball with somebody who might one day flip out and turn into the Incredible Hulk.
I really want someone to analyze
the
meaning of that dream. That also explains so much.
So much. So I wish there was an easy way to transition to our next topic. And it kind of impacts me personally. So if it's okay, I'm going to take the ball and run with for a little bit. Over the last week, I think there are 2 separate stories that came out about the denomination that I call home, the Anglican Church in North America. And both of them in different ways relate to abuse. One is our Archbishop was accused of unwanted sexual advances and abuse of power. And the bishop who is here locally where I live has been charged with allowing people into positions of leadership who had a history of abuse. And he has been charged with not properly putting in places of protection in his diocese. Now, if it's okay, I want to start with telling you a little bit of a story and a little bit of background about my life as a clergy person. I was in seminary in 2002 to 2005 during the height of the sexual abuse crisis in the Catholic Church. And anyone who knows anything about Anglicans and Catholics or Episcopalians and Catholics or some Protestants in general is the collars that we wear are often indistinguishable from the collars that they wear in the Catholic Church. And so I was in Boston a couple of times. And the first time I went there was this homeless guy. I think he was Irish. I won't repeat his accent. And he says, "Bless me, Father, bless me, Father." And I want to say I'm not Catholic, but he didn't care. So I gave him a blessing. The next day I go back and I start seeing all these people looking at me. And I can tell by the suspicion and people like pulling their kids closer to each other, they're thinking I might be a Catholic priest. And I was tempted to say, I remember being on like the subway, whatever they called it in Boston, where nobody wanted to sit beside me. And I'm just sitting there riding it by myself with my collar on. And I just want to stand up in the middle and say, that's not me. But then the Holy Spirit convicted me because there's a sense in which I, as a clergy person, can't simply take advantage of the positives of being associated with the clergy. I have to be associated with some of the negative things too. I have to kind of bear as a part of my own vocation the suspicions of the world. And I thought that rather than separating myself and saying I'm one of the good ones, it would be my responsibility to do the best that I can to make the places where I inhabit healthy. And that instinct actually has, and such is prophetic, because the entirety of my ministry as a clergy person has been marked by scandal. There was the Catholic Church abuse scandal. There was kind of the endless wave of mega church pastors who've gotten in trouble. There's the SBC scandal that people have gotten into trouble. And now it's come to my own denomination. And so I want to say a couple of things. One is, as a clergy person, we make vows. Like in our tradition, I don't make a lot of vows. I made a vow to my wife. I made a vow in my baptism. I made a vow as a priest to do no harm, to protect the people who are most vulnerable. And I think that anytime there is an allegation, it is our responsibility as clergy to pay attention, to center the victims, to pursue justice and pursue the truth. Those are things that we have to do. But there is one thing, and I think I can say that then, if people are guilty, then hopefully the truth comes out. If people are innocent, the truth comes out. Send the victims, be sensitive. I hope I can say all of those things and levy one criticism of the Washington Post article that I think doesn't actually help victims. And as I was reading one of the stories, the thing that bothered me about the story is not that it laid out the allegations. The allegations are the allegations. We will find out the truth of those hopefully in due course. But it's the first couple of paragraphs where they said, okay, this church had traditional theology. It's pro-life. It believes in traditional marriage. I think they even mentioned that like Mike Pence goes to one of our churches in Virginia. And the way that the story was couched, it was like these people are baddies because they're traditional, and here's the abuse case. The problem with that is that's the same basic logic that often operates within these spaces, in this that, okay, because we have the right theology, anytime an abuse case happens, it's an exception to the rule.
Or it must not be true.
Or must not be true,
Yeah.
right? And I think the idea is that if you simply change the theology, if the place is all progressive, then any abuse would be an exception to the rule. But the problem is the abuse happens everywhere. There's abuse in progressive churches. There's abuse in conservative churches. There's abuses in universities. There's abuses in Hollywood. And the truth is human sinfulness exists everywhere. And I think if you treat abuse issues as another manifestation or a place to fight our culture wars, I do believe that we're doing our victims an injustice. And that's the part where I want to push back.
Esau, do you think it's possible that there are some doctrinal views or theological positions which may make abuse more, I don't want to say acceptable, but
Yes.
easier to tolerate in certain systems? But simply getting rid of those theologies doesn't mean abuse won't happen.
Yes, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
I don't want to say theological ideas don't have consequences.
Right.
I don't necessarily think that it's easy to say that we all have the right ideas. One of the things, actually, this might seem weird, but the place where I was most shocked when I started hearing about abuse, this is going to say, you can mock me if you want to, it was Hollywood. Because I remember when I was a kid, I would listen to all of the speeches they would give when people won the Oscars and the Grammys, and they would always be talking about justice. It was climate change, it was racism. It was like all the things that I wanted someone to say were being said in Hollywood. And as I got older and I found out all of the people who were saying like, I'm an actress and in order to get this part, I felt pressure. I was like, how could you say that when you had all the right ideas? And so for me, it's not about saying ideas don't have consequences. The issue is when you frame this as these people did these things because, especially, I think this might be, let me just give you an example. I think it's possible to be both pro-life and anti-abuse. And in the list of things that it says to describe the church, it says they have in a doctrinal position that they're pro-life. And so I was like, well, when you do stuff like this, it causes people to say, these people might be out to get us. And so I do believe that ideas have consequences. I do believe there are harmful theologies exist in the world, but I don't think that it's easy to always locate the causes for abuse, or all of abuse doesn't just happen in places where people are traditional in their theology.
I think more and more people have become aware that this abuse happens everywhere. And I think it's now causing a lot of Christians to be like, I just want to give up on the church completely.
Yeah.
I have trust issues. I tried, I've swung back and forth, and I've landed in a place where I'm just not going to go to church anymore. I don't know. Skye, do you have thoughts on what you would say to someone who's just feeling like, yeah, the abuse is everywhere, so I'm just kind of going to throw the baby out with the bathwater?
Well, the abuse is everywhere, including outside the church.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that solves anything. I believe clergy and the church is called to a higher standard. We are to represent Christ and his kingdom, and we shouldn't see these things happening in the church. It's terrible that they do. But the argument that if I just leave the church, I won't have to deal with this anymore is pretty naive. One example of this, the Southern Baptist scandal, all the cover-up of abuse cases came out in the media. And because it was on the heels of the Roman Catholic story, a lot of people thought, well, both of these Christian denominations have very traditional views of clergy and they're not egalitarian, so maybe that's the whole thing. And then the Willow Creek scandal happened, which was a very well-known megachurch, very egalitarian, many women in leadership roles. And Willow Creek has famously modeled its ministry philosophy off of corporate values and kind of the best practices of American corporations. And, there's never any sexual harassment or abuse in American corporations. So this idea that if we just have more progressive theology, especially around gender roles, it will do away with it. It's ridiculous. So if you leave the church entirely and you spend your life out in the secular world where there's equality and gender equality and all these things, it's not going to happen. Of course it's going to happen. It happens in colleges and universities, and some of the most progressive institutions in our society have this problem as well. So I think as terrible as it is when it happens within the church also has unique tools in helping people heal, and hopefully we learn from these lessons and can have put leadership in place and leadership structures in place that would mitigate against the frequency of these things.
And I do think it's important for churches to sometimes sit back, and even in the case of our church, what kind of policies, structures, and things do we have in place that enable people, abusive people, into power? So I don't want to make it seem like I don't believe that there needs to be structural reform. We don't need to think about ways in which there's certain toxic theologies. I'll give you a perfect example. If you normalize abuse and you put it upon the abused person to forgive the abuser into transformation, that is the kind of theology that enables ongoing abuse. Right. You need to be able to give to the abused people agency to be able to get themselves out of difficult situations. If you make it so impossible for people who are experiencing abuse to actually work in the system, that destroys people's confidence in the church. So I don't want to necessarily say that there are no ways to rethink the way we do things. I want to say that I'm not always sure that the way that these things are framed actually have in mind the kind of reform, because it's a secular institution who kind of often looks at the church through a political lens. Because I just can't imagine if there was a progressive church where, this church has these 15 progressive views and then they did abuse. I just don't think they would frame the story that way. So I think that a real centering of abuse is to actually center the victims even in the way that we tell their story.
We obviously don't know the details of what's unfolding right now in your church, but when you look at the Roman Catholic story, when you look at the Southern Baptist story, stories that happen in the denomination I used to be a part of, you see Kanakuk Camp is another example. What seems to be a common factor in this is when there is knowledge about abuse that's either happened in the past or is happening presently. As tragic as that is, the real sin is when the fear of disclosure would interrupt either the financial or missional goals of the church or denomination. And so the incentive structure is, let's cover it up. Let's sign NDAs. Let's move that troubled person along somewhere else. And it's the cover up. And I mean, frankly, I haven't talked about this publicly. The reason I'm not ordained anymore is because I left my denomination because I felt that the way they were handling an abuse situation was not seeking to protect the church or seeking to protect victims or seeking to protect even the unity of a church. It was seeking to protect leadership and the denominational goals. I find that, here's my point. When you have a situation in which leaders in the church fear failure more than they fear God, victims get abused over and over and over again, churches collapse, people lose trust in the institution. And so at the end of the day, it's clergy fulfilling the vow that you were talking about earlier to fear God more than they fear the failure of their institution.
So one of the things that I often say is one of the things you can learn from the Old Testament is in the Old Testament, God doesn't hide the sins of his people. And the sins of the people are unveiled completely so that we learn not to do those things again. So, for example, you talk about the sins of David. The sins of David and the wickedness of the things that he did is clear for everyone to see. And the point of that is you should learn from that to be a different kind of people. And so I think that the churches sometimes think that the way to further our mission is to hide our sin, but the mission is first and foremost to be the kind of people who reflect Jesus in the world. And I think that you're right that too often the institution thinks that in order to do its work, it needs to lie about what it is. And I think what the institution actually needs to do is to repent for what it is. And when it repents for what it is, it can properly follow Jesus. And I could tell you stories. I mean, people are going to think that I'm out here defending our church. They got mad at me in the Anglican Church in North America for some of the things that I said about abuse. And I was called a troublemaker for doing. And so I know what it's like to be on the outside. And maybe we'll end it on this. I think that you're correct that people are skeptical of the church. And skeptical of the church precisely because it's failures. And I want to say, and this is not to normalize anything. It is to say, it was incumbent upon me as a clergy person to ask this question when I was choosing a denomination or tradition? What is true? Do they say true things about who God is as best as I can understand it? And then after I figured out whether you're going to be Presbyterian, Lutheran, Baptist, Methodist, Anglican, or whatever, after I've discovered a tradition that I can feel like I can point people to Jesus, it is my goal within that tradition never to justify it, to turn my eyes from the brokenness of it, but to be within it and to work for change. And maybe this seems like a strange analogy, and we talked about this probably too long. Is one of the things that happened, I think, with the entire MAGA movement is that rather than being a place where they continued to work for change, although they were saying I was voting for someone who I disagree with, they became like that which they were justifying. Mm-hmm. And I think the danger for people in churches is to cease to be a vocal agent for reform and instead to be an apologist for the empire. And that's when I think you know that you're in a place that you're no longer doing what God has called you to do, if you're no longer calling the institution to be with that which God called it to be.
If you have kids, no kids, or just like reading kids' books yourself, you have to check out Hello, My Name is Emmanuel by Emmanuel Jean Russell, an inspiring true story about Karen Kingsbury's adopted son that celebrates new beginnings, found family, and faith. Born in beautiful Haiti and raised by his loving grandma, Emmanuel's life changed when he faced a scary challenge. But through it all, he found the one who never leaves and learned the true meaning of his name. This heartwarming children's picture book offers more than just a story. It also includes inspiring resources for those interested in adoption, an interactive I Spy map of Haiti, and Haitian words hidden on every page. Perfect for read aloud time, Hello, My Name is Emmanuel gently shares the adoption journey from a child's perspective, reminding kids and adults alike that God is always with them. Hello, My Name is Emmanuel is available now wherever books are sold.
Zones field got him doing football numbers, only average grown. He was acting grown.
But now we have an even more positive story. What, Mike's Corner?
Well, kind of. No,
okay, no,
actually,
okay.
But it relates. Speaking of taking vows,
yes,
and people trying to figure out how to reform something from within. There's news coming out a week ago or so that the military commander overseeing the Pentagon's escalating attacks against the boats in the Caribbean Sea that the Trump administration has been doing, that they claim these boats are smuggling drugs. The military commander overseeing this has announced that he's stepping down.
Okay.
So it's unclear why Admiral Halsey is suddenly departing less than a year into what is typically a 3-year job and in the midst of the biggest operation in his 37-year career. But one current and one former U.S. official, both of whom, of course, spoke on the condition of anonymity, has said
anonymity?
Yeah, thank you. I knew I was going to say that wrong. We're just gonna cut that out.
No, they never edit out my mistakes. Just leave that in
there.
there.
I have the power of the edit.
Yeah, there are times where I say edit it out and he leaves it.
Almost every time.
Every single time. I have no power. He's like, nope, there it is. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Anyway, these officials claim that the admiral has raised concerns about the mission and the attacks on the alleged drug boats.
Yeah. So here's the question, and that maybe this relates to the issue that we were talking about as related to abuse. At what point, maybe this is the question I was thinking from this. At what point does your continued participation in something that you see is demonstrably evil cross the line into the only thing you can do with good conscience is resign?
Well, where it becomes a little clearer if you're a member of the military is there's a legal standard here.
Okay.
So my understanding is if you are given an unlawful order and you suspect that it is unlawful or you know it's unlawful and you choose to execute that order anyway, you are legally liable, even though it came from higher up the chain of command, including from the commander-in-chief. Yeah. So the president of the United States commands you as a general to do something which is unconstitutional and illegal, and you do it, you can also be thrown into jail.
So you think he's doing it pragmatic? He might be doing it pragmatically.
I don't care. I think whether he's doing it because of his conscience or he's doing it because he doesn't want to go to jail, he's fulfilling his vow. Yeah. He took a vow to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. Yeah. So an honorable soldier fulfills their vow. And even if that thing comes from your commander-in-chief, you don't do it. And so there's a lot of stories coming out about how these attacks there's no due process, there's no congressional oversight, there's no legal evidence or proof that these boats, they may well be drug running boats.
Because you blew the boat up.
Exactly.
You blow the boat.
And we should say the countries now are saying that these are innocent people on these boats.
Yeah. And they had one, hopefully I got the details right, where some of the people survived, or they arrested them or whatever, and they then didn't bring them to trial, and they kind of released them or something.
Well, this is the big tell. So the big tell is exactly that, like, some people survived these attacks. Now, normally, if these were enemy combatants, if these were people who were actively engaged in aggressive war against the United States, we would, number one, be justified in bombing their ships or boats. Yeah. Number two, if they survived, then we would arrest them and either put them in military tribunal or in civil court and prove that what they're doing is wrong. This is what we did with terrorists. This is what we did after the initial 9/11 bombing. This is what we did with people who are combatants against U.S. soldiers overseas. We took them to Guantanamo. Yeah. But we had legal standing to do all that in most cases. The fact that the Trump administration...
we're not co-signing.
Yeah, we're not co-signing, but there was at least a pretense to be legal about these things. The fact that the Trump administration took these survivors and rather than taking them to court or jail or military tribunal, sent them back is a tell that they had no legal justification to hold them in prison in the first place. And if they had held on to them, they would have had to have presented evidence that they attacked their boats for good reason, but they didn't have the evidence. So there's a lot of smoke here that shows that this is a big, big problem for the Trump administration. But I think it fits into a larger pattern that we need to look at here. All right, think about things that we've seen in the last week. Okay. Trump tears down the whole east wing of the White House without going through the normal channels for that kind of action. He puts out this AI video during the No Kings protests of him flying a military jet, with the crown
and dumping feces
dumping feces on American people. Like, he is behaving with utter contempt for the American people, for his political opponents, for the White House, for the Constitution, for the military. I mean, he is acting with impunity, and he's acting like a sovereign. He's acting like a monarch and throwing off all of the constraints of law and Constitution and norms. And the big takeaway, and I credit Jonah Goldberg for making this point. I heard him say this. I thought it was a really good one. The most played ad during the 2024 campaign was that transgender ad that the Trump campaign ran during every football game, saying that Kamala Harris is for they, them, but Donald Trump is for you, or he'll fight for you, something like that. Put the transgender thing aside for a second. The real message of that ad was Kamala Harris doesn't care about ordinary Americans. But Donald Trump does, and he cares about the high price of groceries, and he's going to fight for you, and he's going to do. When you look at what this man is doing and how he's behaving, it's a very clear narrative. He doesn't care about anyone.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, sometimes I feel like we have to. I want to avoid just saying "we told you so,"
but it feels so good.
But no, it doesn't. It feels horrible because it's like we don't win anything. We all put up with it. Yeah. But one of the things that, at least I would say, a significant portion of the African American community were actually saying is that this seems to me to be like a thin veneer to cover a sense of a loss of control of the country due to the increasing diversity, and that for all of the other stuff that was cloaking it, underneath all of it was like racial animus. And if you want to say, like, what are some of the key components that you've seen that have marked this, like, administration, the anti-DEI stuff. And when I'm talking about DEI, I'm talking about, like, the firing of qualified African Americans and other ethnic minorities, the firing of qualified women, the idea that you can just, like, racially profile people now. And so you're seeing that particular thing be, if there's a policy that he's actually implemented, it is an increased hostility towards Black and brown people that's evident in a lot of things happening. But I don't want to actually get this guy's, I don't want to lose this general's decision, because it's one of these things that I'm often struggling with. Sometimes when you're in we're in this like broken system, even in a church, and you're trying to navigate this idea of, how do I work within the system? How do I speak out? If I do speak out, what are the consequences? And there are a lot of times when people say, I will just keep my head down and hopefully the winds will change and then I can kind of emerge from it unscathed. But I do think it's going to come a point, whether or not as a clergy person, I don't think I can just like stop being a clergy person. I might do something that gets myself a persona non grata. Actually, I've been there. Like I've been on the outs. But I do think there does come a time where clergy people have to stand up and say, for whatever the consequences of my career, this activity is unjust and you pay the consequences.
Well, this is what is so admirable about what the admiral has done is he's taken his vows seriously. Yeah. And one of the things that, and I've said this on other shows, but the reason why Donald Trump has been able to get away with what he's doing and all the things you mentioned is because other people in the government have not taken their vows seriously.
And that's what I want to get to.
I'm thinking back when Mitt Romney was the first person in American history to vote to impeach a president, to convict a president in the Senate from his own party, right? And when he was interviewed later about why he did it, and many people know he's a very devout Mormon, he said, I take my vows seriously and I have to give an account to God one day, right? Now, I admire Mitt Romney for his integrity. There are a lot of people in Congress right now, both in the Senate and the House, who flaunt their Christian identity all the time, including Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. And if I could sit down with one of these folks, what I want to ask them is, do you not fear God?
Yes.
Do you not care that you put your hand on a Bible and swore to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States? And this admiral, why am I saying that? Admiral took that same vow and he is taking it seriously enough to resign in protest over what's going on right now. Where is Mike Johnson? Where are the others in Congress who have the power to restrain this president from doing some of these things that are clearly illegal and unjust? And they're just sitting there silent.
I don't think, here's the thing. I've been thinking about this because one of the things I've noticed over the last few weeks is the noise that you need to support this has actually gotten louder. So I've seen a lot of like Christian megachurch pastors, I won't say their names, who said, there's no way that you can not support this administration. If you want to be a Christian in this moment, you have to do it. And I actually feel that, and there are people who, anytime there's a post that criticizes anything this administration does, there's people who jump in and go, what do you want us to do? Because I think that their consciences are troubled. I do not believe that you can watch what is actually happening. You can see someone bombing boats without legal justification. You can see someone dumping feces on an entire people. You can see people just ignoring the Constitution. And I think the loud denunciations are guilty consciences.
I agree.
And I think that their souls are troubled.
Do you remember in 2016, Hillary Clinton was caught on mic in a private fundraiser where she described Trump supporters as a basket of deplorables, right? It was not only a horrendous thing for her to say, it was politically stupid for her to say that. And the right-wing media just went crazy on this. And rightfully so. Like what she said was terrible and wrong. We have just seen a video posted by the President of the United States of him, you can bleep this out, literally on the American people, right? The people who don't support him. And it's like, this is just fine. Like, it's just as bad, if not worse than what Hillary Clinton said.
Can I do what I did in my church on Sunday? Then we'll go to the next topic. Make you feel a little better. Finish your topic though.
So, but my point is, I think a lot of people are seeing this and there's sort of a sunk fallacy cost. They've realized, well, we've thrown our lot in with this guy since 2015 and it's so bad now, but we can't admit it. We can't really tell the truth of what our conscience is telling us. So we're just going to double, triple, quadruple down on this thing and pray it ends and we can get out of this without losing our following and integrity.
The reading from last week in our election year was the Pharisee and the tax collector. And it was the tax collector who was complicit in cooperating with the empire, who went to church or went to synagogue or went to temple. And it says he would not look up to heaven, but he beat his chest that God have mercy upon me, a sinner. And the thing that I talked to my congregation about on Sunday was, I wonder how much he saw before he went to church. Because in order to be a tax collector, you have to close your heart to the pleas of your people, who are your own people, not to take the last that they have. But he finally got to the point where his soul was troubled, and he went to God to repent. And so I actually believe, or I pray, and I said it last week, the people who are supporting the things that are happening now, their souls will be troubled. And they will say, like this person, whether it's legal or moral, whatever, I can't do this anymore. Now, you want to talk about money and betting.
Me, I wanted to talk about it.
So this is a democracy. And so like you said that you want to talk about the betting scandal.
I have been inspired by this vow conversation. Do
Okay.
you think we should have some podcast vows? Like you and I should swear vows to each other?
I mean, sure.
Yeah.
I swear to allow you to talk periodically, to give you a corner once every 2 to 3 episodes,
2 to 3.
and to never be excessively complimentary so you don't get overly excited about yourself.
Egotistical? Okay.
Yeah.
I think we got to workshop those vows.
Wait,
But-
you didn't make any vows for me.
Well, I vow to
You vow? Okay.
continue to leave in your flubs.
Okay.
Because I think
Okay,
it makes
okay.
for a more entertaining podcast for people to listen to.
Okay.
I feel like we're just double downing on our preconceived notions. These vows aren't really changing anything.
No. Okay, then we'll work.
We'll work on it.
But audience, what vow should me and Mike make to one another? And we'll let them decide. Okay. The betting scandal. What's
Sports
going on
gambling.
here?
Big deal last week. The Justice Department announced indictments of Chauncey Billups, the coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, and Terry, is it Rozier?
Rozier.
Okay, a guard of the Miami Heat on gambling-related charges. Billups, along with 30 other defendants, he was charged with his involvement in a mafia scheme to rig illegal poker games
This is going to be a great movie one day. By the
in
way.
New York City and across the country. And Rozier, and 5 other
His
defendants.
nickname was Scary Terry.
Oh, it's Scary Terry. I like that better.
Okay.
And 5 other defendants were charged with wire fraud and money laundering conspiracies related to a scheme in which Scary Terry allegedly changed his in-game behavior to rig so-called prop bets.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know how prop bets works, back in the day, you could bet on who was going to win the game and by how much. You can say, okay, I want to bet that the Lakers will win by 10 or 15 points. And so although an individual player could rig a game, if other people on your team had a really good game, you couldn't always control the outcome. A prop bet is an individual bet on the activities of a player. So you can say, I want to bet $1,000 that Terry Rozier will get over 8 rebounds or under 8 rebounds.
Right.
And so that individual person has a direct control over whether or not he gets 7 rebounds or not.
So, for example, he took himself out of a game early to ensure that he would go under.
He was accused of doing that.
He was accused of taking himself out of a game early so that he would go under
with
his
a fake
prop
injury,
line.
right? A prop bet is short for proposition bet.
Yeah, I
right?
guess. Yeah,
and you can bet on anything.
Yes.
Anything now.
Anything.
Yes.
And you were saying that that a lot of the money in gambling comes from proposition
Yeah, I
bets?
read an article that said 70% of prop bets fail.
Yes.
So it's a very high margin win for the betting companies. They love prop bets because they make tons of money on them, obviously. So it's become a huge, huge part of sports betting.
The thing that I thought was interesting about this is that what I think the NBA, NFL, and these scandals have actually come into a lot of the other major sports is they put a tremendous amount of pressure on the individual to be ethical for the sake of their profits. In other words, now if you have a gambling debt, or if you want to make money for your friends, one of the things they're accused of doing is saying, "Hey guys, I'm gonna not get my 8 rebounds. You should all bet on me." And they said there was a tremendous amount of money bet on either his under, and so people could immediately know that it was him because there's now all of this money coming in on the Terry unders.
Yeah, but it's so simple. Here's an example that I read about. You can now bet on whether the first pitch in a baseball game is going to be a ball or a strike.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're the pitcher, you can just decide, all right, I'm going to make my first pitch a ball, and it doesn't really affect the game in any way. It's not going to. And you can tell whoever, hey, bet big that I'm going to throw a ball on the first, and so. It's so easy to corrupt the game now.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to make these bets. And it's shocking that I'm sure there's more going on than we know. But there's many layers to this problem. And I think sports betting is entirely out of control. And it's destroying especially young men's lives. Yeah. And I'm seeing it with teenagers and college age young men especially. It's not only is betting itself addictive. We've known that for a long time. But then you put it on an addictive device like your phone. Yeah. And all this prop betting means you can be betting constantly throughout the whole game all the time. It's made for disaster. But here's the part that kind of gets me. Like, we have seen a precipitous decline in the trust in American institutions, everything from the church and the scandals there to the government, corporations, education, everything. Professional sports, or even college sports, has been one place that Americans could go to just enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
It's one place we could go across ethnic diversity, across cultural diversities, across political diversities, and just enjoy a game.
Yeah.
And now two things are happening. One, you're eroding our confidence in that institution as well, because sports betting is destroying it. But number two, there's all these stories coming out about how people now are actually like stalking and attacking professional players because they're angry that they lost tons of money. And so thinking about the way politics has become so apocalyptic for people, like whoever wins an election, it's the end of the world if they don't, which is why we had rioters on January 6th, 2021 and all that. Well, now that's happening to sports.
Yeah.
Because if your family's livelihood is riding on whether or not someone throws a ball or a strike, or whether someone gets injured in a game or gets 15 rebounds, you can't watch that game as just enjoyment or entertainment anymore, even or the passion of a fan. Your livelihood's riding on it, which means the stakes are so much higher. And for some, you see this in the sports betting advertisements all the time. Oh, it's going to heighten your enjoyment of the game to have money riding on the line.
It doesn't. I mean, I don't.
But
gamble.
it makes you more interested. Like, that's where fantasy football, sports gambling, that's why they've become so successful. That now it's not just when my Vikings play it that I'm interested in a football game. I'm interested in every single game that I have a bet on.
Every
fantasy
single player,
player.
every game.
But it also means you get more angry and despondent when the bet doesn't go well. And it's not healthy for a society that we've taken this one thing that used to be primarily entertainment and a community bonding activity, and we've turned it into life and death stakes for my financial future.
Yeah.
And it's now becoming just as divisive and angry as everything else in American society.
But why? And the answer to this question is the god of our culture, which is greed.
That's right.
The NFL was already one of the most profitable leagues in the world. They had people they had the different streaming companies in bidding wars just for the right to like show their games. They went from 16 games to 17 games. They used to have games just on like Sundays and Mondays. Now it's Sunday, Monday, Thursdays, and there's significant parts of the seasons on Saturdays. And a lot of those things, by playing on a Sunday and on a Thursday, increases the likelihood. It seems like it would logically be not physically great on the players. And what is at the heart of all of this? Money. And the other thing that I want to talk about this, and maybe this is like my Jesus juke or whatever that I love to do, is just to ask this question. Did the NFL think about the good of their people when they made this decision?
No.
Part of what
I think they did.
No.
Well,
the players.
Which people?
The players.
Yeah.
And
it was their investors.
Yeah, the investors. What I mean by this is that like there is something to be said as a Christian about discernment. And what kinds of boundaries you need to put up in place to lower like the amount of temptation. So sometimes like churches can fall into legalism of putting too many rules up. Like, don't watch this movie, don't listen to this thing on the radio, this thing is of the devil. And I can get all of this idea that there was an era in Christianity where we're so afraid of culture that we hid from it. But we can also put ourselves in situations where we know spiritually this is not good for us. Some people can't actually, because they have addictive personalities, they know I can't just have one beer. Because for me, having one beer is going to lead to 2, lead to 3. Some people can't actually gamble because they can't say I can gamble a little bit. And I think that in our tradition, sorry, people don't think that our tradition keeps any vows anymore. But like there are certain rules about like as a clergy person, you're not supposed to gamble because the idea is that these addictions can get a hold to us and have a stronghold. And so I do think that it is sometimes the job of churches and clergy to warn people about the spiritual danger of things and say, you just step away. It's the form of pastoral care. And I want to say the NFL did not actually care about the well-being of their players and the potential economic pressure they're going to be under. Because the average NFL career is like 3 to 5 years.
Right.
And so obviously 3 to 5 years, you often don't always come from a wealthy background and you have friends who might be in trouble. There are all of these ways which these people are going to be vulnerable. And the NFL said, I don't care. Let me just make a lot of money.
Here's the other interesting angle on this. I mean,
the NBA.
The leagues make a ton of money off of gambling too. They get a cut of all the profits.
Which is why you see all these advertisements everywhere now.
Exactly. I mean, there is a close relationship between these gambling companies.
Got to put LeBron down.
Yeah.
Sorry, LeBron.
and the leagues. Well, in the light of all of this scandal, many of the commissioners have come out and said, oh, we recognize prop bets are pretty dangerous and we want them to be a lot more restricted or potentially even eliminated. We'll see what happens, but I am skeptical any of the gambling companies will eliminate these prop bets because they make so much money for them. And it seems like this is another example of people seeing something like, oh, I know it's a little destructive. I know it's a little bad, but I'm going to be different. I can control this. I'll make sure it doesn't get out of hand. And then it gets out of hand. The ugly thing reveals just how destructive it is. Yeah. But by that time, it's too late to do anything about it.
I think this is I get on this hobby horse all the time, but this is ripe for it. I think this is a classic example of not paying attention to Chesterton's fence.
Okay.
You know this?
No.
Okay. So G.K. Chesterton had this metaphor he used to describe the difference between progressivism and conservatism. Yeah. He said, you're building a road through a field and you come across a fence that's in the way of where you're trying to build the road. The progressive says, this fence is in the way, we should get rid of it. And the conservative says, well, hold on a second. Before we rip this fence out, maybe we should investigate why it was put here in the first place. And we might discover that it's no longer needed, and then we can rip it out. But we might discover that it's here for an important reason, in which case we should leave it and divert the road around it. There's a reason why we outlawed gambling in most of the country for most of our history, because I think we inherited an understanding that this is destructive. It's destructive to communities, to individuals, to families, to institutions. It's not a great idea. And we just blew through that fence because there was a lot of money to be made in the short term. And we are reaping the consequences of it. And I think what's interesting, and maybe where they will finally make a change, is if it undermines trust in the game itself so much that people no longer tune in. Yeah. If that starts happening, then they'll realize, okay, we need to pull this back.
Which is still just, they're motivated by money.
Exactly. I'm not expecting them to be motivated by something other than money, but it was so stupid and short-sighted.
Yeah, totally.
But I wish we lived in a society where, and not just sports gambling, but on multiple fronts, we could ask the question, not just will this, pad my bottom line financially, but what kind of a society will it create? Yeah. So you think about there's legal cases right now about access to pornography on the internet. And, the First Amendment argument is, well, in a free society, people should have access to this, but we're going, but children, really? Yeah. Like, can't we put up safeguards against that? But one by one, we're taking all these fences that prior generations had constructed that they thought would make for a better culture and society.
It's only made us worse.
And it's only made us worse. Now, there are some fences that we've inherited that needed to be brought down. Obviously, like racial segregation was a terrible fence that needed to be take it down. But it doesn't take that long to investigate that and realize this is built for a bad reason. Yeah. Let's remove it for a good one. But there's a lot of fences we've put up that are not bad. Yeah. That have been put there for good reason. And they might slow down our profitability of a company or an industry, but it's still there for a good reason.
Yeah, I want to put a fence around two things to close the podcast. One is my team, Tottenham Hotspurs, who've not been accused of any gambling impropriety. Yeah. And also LeBron James. So there's a fence here where he is safe.
Maybe, for now.
What do you mean?
Well, more information is going to come out.
What do you mean?
Well, even technically, his name was already mentioned in this scandal.
Who?
LeBron.
No, he didn't do it.
It's accused that his teammate, Scary Terry, told his group of co-conspirators that LeBron is hurt and isn't going to play this game.
That was Damon Jones. But that means LeBron trusted his friend. It's like if I come to you and say, my knee hurts, I don't expect Mike to go and tell all of his buddies.
How do you know he wasn't like, hey, my knee hurts, wink, wink.
You saw the Last Dance documentary about the Bulls?
Yeah. You mean The Last Propaganda?
Oh, all right. But just the insight into how competitive Michael Jordan was about everything, not just basketball, and how much gambling he did. Yeah. Do you think if these sports betting apps were available back in the 90s,
not my Jordan,
he would have. But that's my point. Like, there's a lot of people today we don't know.
We don't know. See, that's the thing, and maybe this will close. It could be anyone, and we need to do due diligence to find out the truth and follow wherever it leads, even when it's uncomfortable. Thank you all so much for listening to the Esau Macaulay podcast. Have mercy upon us. We'll see you all next week. Hello, everyone. If you like this video, please like and subscribe on YouTube. And even if you didn't like this one, you'll like the next one. And please do it, or I'm going to lose my job. And I have 4 kids. And they eat a lot of food.